My name is Noah Franklin, and I was one of the 10 young adults who had the privilege of representing North Raleigh United Methodist Church on a mission trip to Anchorage, Alaska. I'm honored to share how God used this trip not only to serve others, but also to deepen my faith in relationship with Him. To truly understand the impact of this trip, I need to begin with how I came to be a part of North Raleigh. Last December, I walked into the fellowship hall for the first time, carrying the heavy burdens of guilt and anger. I came seeking growth, direction, and purpose. I found a seat in the back row behind two kind and welcoming individuals, Jay and Debbie. Over time, Jay and Debbie became more than familiar faces. They became storytellers of the church's mission and impact both local and global. One Sunday, they asked about my background, and I shared that while I had grown up going to church, it was more out of obligation than personal desire. One Sunday, they asked about my background. Share that. I also told them that I'd recently graduated from Appalachian State with a degree in elementary education, that I was working as a youth director at the YMCA. Jay and Debbie introduced me to Jen Hazeldine. Just a couple of weeks later, I received an email from Jen about an opening in the church's mission leadership cohort for an upcoming trip to Alaska. At first, I was overwhelmed with reasons to say no. I wasn't baptized, I hadn't read the Bible, and I didn't feel like I was a good enough Christian. I questioned, why would I be called to service, especially 1,000 miles away from home? As it was precisely something I never imagined myself doing, I said yes. In my time at North Raleigh, I've learned to surrender my own plans and embrace the idea that God's timeline is better than my own. Saying yes to this opportunity was a step of faith, one that became a turning point in my walk with God. Over the next 3 months, our team of 10 young adults met virtually each Wednesday. During those Zoom calls, we not only learned about the mission work ahead of us, but we also explored theological truths through weekly theology toolbox sessions. By the time May 17th arrived, I was boarding a flight to Anchorage with 9 strangers who would soon become like family. Once we arrived and settled into our home for the week, we learned more about the work we'd be doing in partnership with the C3 Church. Each day was structured intentionally. Mornings were spent constructing and beautifying the property surrounding the church's greenhouse. Afternoons were devoted to youth ministry with neighborhood children, and evenings were spent growing together as a team and taking in the breathtaking beauty of Alaska. The work on the greenhouse challenged me physically and spiritually. We mowed, tilled, and built flower beds, tasks that seemed ordinary. But as the days passed, it became clear that our goal wasn't just to complete a structure. The greenhouse was a space where people could not only receive food, but also encounter the love of God through connection with the church. In the afternoons, we served in C3's youth ministry program. Pastor Ben explained that many of the children came from low-income households and were being raised by single parents, often without male role models. We played games like Foursquare, Knockout, and Tag, but we often focused on devotions through stories like Jonah, the Lazarus, and the paralyzed man being lowered through the roof to reach Jesus. As the children learned about God's grace and healing power, I found myself learning alongside them. Their wonder and honesty deepened my understanding of faith. Working with youth is something I do every day, but I never imagined children would be who would draw me closer to God. One moment stands out. On our last day, we were serving hot dogs to the children. After they all received their food, I instinctively asked if anybody wanted to bless the meal. One boy eagerly raised his hand. As I sat beside him, he leaned in and whispered, "I don't know how to pray." I told him, prayer is simply a conversation with God. It's a time when we thank Him for the blessings in our lives, and also when we bring to Him our hopes, our needs, and the needs of others. He nodded, and together we bowed our heads and prayed together. It was a simple act, but for me, it was eye-opening. I had never prayed aloud either. That moment reminded me that faith is not about having all the answers. It reminded me that we don't walk this journey alone. God surrounds us with people to guide us and walk beside us, like Jay and Debbie, like my peers in North Raleigh and even a young boy I had just only met. In that shared prayer, I experienced God in a new and powerful way. Each night, our team gathered for devotions and shared where we had seen God during the day. That shared prayer was my moment. It was the moment I knew God meets us where we are. He doesn't require perfection or preparation, just a willingness to step toward him. Through this trip, I let go of the shame about being new to faith. I began to see my spiritual desire not as a weakness, but as a strength, a sign that God is moving in my life and inviting me into something deeper. Outside of service, our evenings were filled with awe and wonder of God's creation. Whether we were hiking through Kincaid Park, watching or swimming in the waves at Beluga Point, or driving through Denali National Park, the majesty of Alaska left us speechless. I couldn't help but feel God's presence all around me, in the vastness of the mountains and water, but also in the unity and connection of our team. This mission trip changed me. I returned home with a clearer sense of God's purpose for my life, a stronger connection to my faith, and renewed passion to serve, not out of obligation for my work, but out of love. Thank you for allowing me to share my journey, and thank you to North Raleigh for creating a space where I could grow, serve, and encounter God in such a powerful way. Thank you.